Working on the best idea that I've ever had, and I cannot even contain my excitement about it. I'm on a roll right now, and I've got to catch you up on it over the course of a few episodes because there's too much to talk about. Okay, so last I talked, I was like, they have all these prototypes that are interesting to me, except they have sort of lost their shine a little bit because I feel like I already know what they are. I already know where the game is going. It's no longer surprising or challenging to me. I kind of am like, I think I know how I would finish this game. And it takes so much work to finish the game. It's like, do I really want to do something that's so feels so predictable? So I thought, what's an idea that is less predictable, that's harder to finish, that I don't know the shape of it yet. I've heard writers talk about before, like they're like, I only want to write the book that I want, that I don't yet know how to write. And I feel that way about like, I want to design the game that's like so interesting to me, but I don't yet know how to design it. And in short, the pitch of this game is one of you is playing, pardon me, I just bumped my mic. One of you is playing in the past, and the rest of you are playing in the present. And it's a cooperative game, but it is genuinely asymmetric because one of you is basically playing a different game in the past that has massive implications for the game that the rest of you are playing in the present. Talk a little bit about how that works in a bit in the back half of this, but first, kind of how I got here. So I was reading this book. It's highly recommended by a bunch of smart people I know called A Canticle for Leibowitz. And it's this book that is all about basically like this like post-nuclear Holocaust world where there's this order of monks who are trying to preserve these texts and like these technologies and these artifacts, these relics from the old world. And part of what's really interesting about it is that they don't really necessarily understand the context of what those things are or what they mean or how to use them. They just know this is all we've got from the old world and we've got to do everything we can to preserve them. It's such an interesting idea to me that we have things left over from the past and we don't always understand the context of where they came from or why they exist or why we have them or why this was preserved and other stuff wasn't preserved. And we just have to kind of make sense of that without being able to talk to the past. And this idea got stuck in my head of how do you make that into game? Where I ended up is pretty different from this book. There's a lot that's in the book that's not in the game. There's a lot that's in the game that's not in the book. But that was a spark of this idea is our relationship with the past. And wouldn't it be so interesting if one player was in the past and the rest were not? Sorry, fixing my mic. So here's how this works. Basically, one player is playing as like the emperor or the empress of this old city, and they're basically playing a city building game. And they have these cards. We're in the ugly prototype phase that basically can produce like some resources. Like this is a card that produces intellect, and when you play it in a stand where it's facing you, and you can see what it is. But these other people, these wanderers in the present, can't see exactly what you're building. They can only see the ruins of what you're building. And so on this card, it also tells you go get the following relics and put them on this space. And so you have this big deck of different relics, which are effectively cards that players get to pick up and add to their deck. So there's a kind of this deck building element to it that are all unique to the spaces, the landmarks that you're building on these different places. But importantly, you are also giving shape to this monster who's basically prowling around the map, who I call the Golem. And the Golem is also the result of the buildings that you're putting together in the city that you're creating. And so if you create a bunch of intellectual buildings and you build up this sort of like civic society, whatever, that is going to affect what, actions the wanderers are able to pick up and maybe misunderstand, maybe misuse and maybe use brilliantly. But it is also going to add cards to the Golem's deck. And so it's going to change how the Golem plays. And so you are building basically this monster that's left over from society, but you're also giving tools to the wanderers who will come after you and trying to preserve things that will be useful for them. It's a cooperative game. You try to beat the monster in a variety of different ways, and that's how this game works. So the things that are interesting to me about this, the things that are really exciting. First, just the basic hook that I just described of like one of you's in the past, many of you are in the present, and there's this big communication gap between the two. That's super interesting to me. And every time I talk about it with other game designers, with other people in my life, everyone universally is like, whoa, that's interesting. I want to play that game. I want to know how that works. that's a good sign, right? Um, I like that it is truly asymmetric, and you basically have to design two different games. So the Wanderers are exploring, they're doing map exploration, they're going into these confusing ruins and finding these little relics and trying to piece together what kind of society was this. But also they're being chased around by this dangerous golem. Their gameplay in some ways is similar to something like Gloomhaven, where you're like moving around spaces. Maybe if the person left behind, the emperor left behind you like a militaristic society, you're going to get into this crazy bloody battle with the golem. But if they left behind like a magical society that focused on husbandry and solidarity, that is going to play totally differently. The stuff that is left over to you is completely different. And the way the golem behaves is also going to be totally different, right? So what this turns the emperor into is like this dungeon master almost, where they are crafting this experience for you, which works really well also if you're teaching someone the game, right? So suppose you know the game better than your friends do, and you invite them over and you want to give them this cool experience. Sorry, fixing my mic again. It's really sagging down. You want to give people this really cool experience. You get to kind of have some agency over that. And you say, hey, let me play as the emperor. I'm going to give you guys the cool experience. I'm going to pick the buildings that I want you to experience, right? It's a pretty cool, fun dynamic there where the asymmetry is actually like a feature. But then I think it's so neat that the choices you make, they change the map. Of which buildings you build. They change all at once. They change the map. They change the relics actions that are available to the Wanderers, but they also shape the golem. And what you end up doing is like crafting this unique game. And one of the really cool things that I love about this is that there's some relics, once you kind of build up your little society, that actually have new victory conditions. So suppose you build up, let's say like religion, which helps you heal, and the husbandry thing where you get to like work well with the beasts who this golem is, then you might be able to actually heal and befriend the golem, which could be like a victory condition you find. And I want there to be, I've designed it in a way where there's actually like 8 of these right now. There could be more in the future. And so the deeper you go into the game, you have this experience of, oh, I thought we were just trying to kill the golem, but here I found that we actually have the tools now to trap it or befriend it or to defang it and make it less dangerous, etc. And so you get to find these really cool victory conditions that are the result of building this little city in a very specific way. So even if you build it, you can come back and say, actually, what were all those like water cards? What were all of those like wood tool cards? There's a bunch of cards about like digging. Like there's all these different sort of landmarks that we didn't build. What happens if we fully explore those paths and combine them in different ways? And you find more and more victory conditions. So the real end game is like beating the game every way that it can be beat. And this all actually is afforded by this extremely simple game design. Like the emperor basically is playing this little city building game and just has these cards that have, requirements of what kind of landscape they need to be built on, what they need to be adjacent to, but it's not too complicated. It's like a single player game that most people would be completely comfortable doing. And then the Wanderers, there's really not that many rules that govern what they do. It's just they move space to space. They can, they have, hit points, but then the complexity, the intrigue arises from they're going around to these different ruins and picking up cards and going, huh, that's interesting. That, like this is a different kind of action that I'm not used to taking. And so the complexity kind of at the beginning of the game for them is quite straightforward. They're just moving around picking up relics, but the relics might have interesting stuff on them, and then eventually new victory conditions for them. So my dream for this is huge. And I think that actually just with that really simple system, there is a lot of stuff that you could pack in here, a lot of really cool ideas. And so I've explored a bunch of them. And I'm going to talk in subsequent episodes about how this works, the interesting design problems I'm running into. But I have been going hard at this thing, and I am more excited than I've been in a long time. And if this game is, and if it even reaches 70% of the vision that I have for it, it's going to be amazing. So here's hoping. Stay tuned for more. We'll be talking about it again next week.